Fellow of the Armenia. Today we will discuss the upcoming US presidential elections and its implications for the South Caucasus. 2024 US presidential elections are very tight. 2 days before the elections, chances are equal, both for Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, and it's really very challenging to assess which of the candidates have more chances to be elected as a US president and enter the White House on January 20, 2025. However, despite the tight race, there are a lot of discussions in many think tanks, in academia, all over the world, and all try to answer one key question. What will be the implications of the US elections on Southeast Asia, Central Asia, Asia Pacific, Africa, Latin America, Russia, Ukraine, Eastern Europe, Middle East? Given the polycrisis which the world faces now, including two wars, one in Eastern Europe, another in the Middle East, plus rising tensions in Asia Pacific, definitely the person who will enter the White House on January 20, 2025 will face several challenges and tough questions to answer and to elaborate policy aiming to push forward the US national interests. Given the geopolitical turbulences in the South Caucasus for the last 4 years, 2020 Nagorno-Karabakh war, then Azerbaijan incursions into Armenia proper in 2021, and in a bigger scale in September 2022, the September 2023 Azerbaijani attack against self-proclaimed Nagorno-Karabakh Republic and forced displacement of all Armenians from Nagorno-Karabakh, as well as the limbo which surrounds the Armenia-Azerbaijan and Armenia-Turkey normalization process. Despite all hopes that some agreement can be signed by COP29, which is going to start in Baku on November 11, 2024, we are approximately a week from this event and no breakthrough. Yes, Armenia-Azerbaijan agreed almost 80 or maybe even 90% of the text, but still Azerbaijan argues that A, the agreement cannot be signed as far as all articles are not agreed. B, agreement cannot be signed as far as Armenia is not going to change its constitution and other laws. And Turkey's position is very clear. Nothing substantial on Armenia-Turkey track as far as there is no Armenia-Azerbaijan peace agreement. Also, we see developments in Georgia, including the recent parliamentary elections, which held on October 26, 2024. And all this raises the question, what will be the implications of the US presidential elections on our region, on the South Caucasus? So we have two options, Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. If Kamala Harris enters the White House on January 20, 2025, probably we will not face significant changes in US foreign policy. At the end of the day, Kamala Harris is Democrat, and Kamala Harris was the vice president at Biden's administration in the last 4 years, and she, ex officio, was involved in foreign policy decision making. Of course, some key figures will be changed. Probably we will have a new Secretary of State, new Secretary of Defense, new National Security Advisor, but probably there will be no U-turns in US foreign policy. What does it mean for South Caucasus? Probably it means that US will continue to view South Caucasus as an area of the competition and rivalry with Russia, as an area where the United States can inflict some pain on Russia, and South Caucasus will be viewed by the United States mostly through Russia's prism, like what to do and what not to do to create additional problems for Russia. Is this good for Armenia or no, or for South Caucasus in general? Again, we have different views. Many in Armenia believe that it will mean that the United States will continue its active involvement in Armenia-Azerbaijan peace negotiations, will push forward for Armenia-Azerbaijan agreement and also for Armenia-Turkey normalization. Some may believe that this will mean that US will put pressure on Georgian Dream government, trying to somehow convince or force Georgian Dream to repeal the recent laws which were adopted, law on the transparency of foreign influence and law on family values or anti-LGBT propaganda laws. And in Azerbaijan, probably there is a feeling that US will still speak about democracy and human rights in Azerbaijan, or lack of them, but also US will facilitate the transportation of oil and gas from Azerbaijan to Europe, circumventing Russia, as far as Europe needs these resources. Let's not forget that the United States was one of the key backers of the Southern Gas Corridor, through which, starting from late December 2020, Azerbaijani gas started to flow to Europe, and now approximately 10 European countries are the recipient of Azerbaijani gas. So this is Kamala Harris. If Donald Trump enters the White House, I see two potential sub-scenarios. So scenario number one, if President Trump is successful to stop the war in Ukraine and come to some sort of understanding with Russia, then probably US will lose its interests towards the South Caucasus as an area where you can create problems for Russia. And this will diminish the role of South Caucasus for the United States. Let's be very clear. South Caucasus was never a priority for the United States under no administration, including Biden administration. But when I'm telling that the US interest will decrease, or probably may decrease, it means that South Caucasus was not a priority. But if now it's probably, let's say, it's on the 25 article on US foreign policy list, then under Trump administration, if war in Ukraine is stopped, it could be 50 point in US foreign policy agenda. But if Trump fails to stop the war in Ukraine, because Russia may reject the US offer how to stop the war in Ukraine, then Trump may even increase military support to Ukraine and even may increase the actions against Russia in former Soviet space, including in South Caucasus. And this means we will see even more US involvement in our region, trying to create more problems for Russia. Now, which of these two scenarios are better for the South Caucasus? Again, different opinions. Some argue that less US interest towards the South Caucasus will be bad, because especially if war in Ukraine is stopped, because it means that Russia will be able to put more resources in South Caucasus, and somehow the region will be fully circled by this regional order, 3+2, or maybe 3+3, if Georgia joins this platform, and Armenia will have to deal mostly with Russia, Iran, Turkey, trying to somehow secure its interests. And the region will be mostly under the influence of these three bigger neighbors, Russia, Turkey, Iran. And some believe that this is bad, but others argue that at least the South Caucasus will stop being the area of rivalry between Russia and the United States, and this will stabilize the region, because any rivalry, any geopolitical struggle is complicated, and it creates complex choices for the regional powers, because they have to make choices between the several big elephants. But if potential Trump's efforts to stop the war in Ukraine, they are failed, then we will come back to the scenario first under Kamala Harris, and even maybe more US involvement. Of course, as of now, it's first of all difficult to argue that these scenarios will fully come into reality. There could be other scenarios, But one thing is clear, that the US presidential elections will have impact on the South Caucasus, despite the fact that South Caucasus was never been and is not the priority for the United States foreign policy. However, there will be an impact. From Armenian perspective, I think Armenia should be prepared for both three scenarios, like Kamala Harris wins, Trump wins, war in Ukraine stopped, Trump wins, war in Ukraine is not stopped, and the US even increases its support to Ukraine, which means more confrontation, more rivalry between Russia and the United States in several areas, including the South Caucasus. Armenia should be ready for all three scenarios. All three scenarios create both opportunities and challenges for Armenia, and the government should be ready to overcome these challenges, and also government should be ready to multiply the potential opportunities which any of these scenarios may create. But at the end of the day, one thing is clear. Any region which becomes the area of geopolitical rivalry between great and middle powers, the region becomes fractured, region becomes complex, complicated, fault lines emerge in the region, and in general, this is bad news for the regional powers. While if the region is not an area of great and middle powers rivalry, chances are more, then the region will be at least relatively stable, secure, and prosperous. This is all for today, and we will meet soon.